Welcome back to Comic Watchers, where we bring you the latest news and reviews from the ever-expanding world of fandom. Brought to you by Comic Watch. Comic Watch is your source for all your comics and media news and reviews, written by fans for fans. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Spread the word that we're coming for the clickbait sites. It's our time now. My name is Cody. I'll be your host for this week, and I'm joined by the rest of my crew.
Brian from Devil's Fork, Arizona.
And John Jack from Seattle, Washington. I run the Comic Watchers Facebook page if you want to go check it out, or you can look me up in my group for the love of comic books.
And unfortunately, we're out Derbs this week. He is calling it in sick today. So we wish him the best and getting better soon so we can get him back on the show. So it was a pretty busy weekend for news. So, Brian, what do you got for us this week?
Yeah, there's been quite a few news. I was kind of expecting more considering New York Comic Con just ended, but I got a lot of my information from a lot of different sources, so I'm not sure what came out of where. But in today's movie news, there's rumors that Avengers 4 will take place 5 years after the Infinity War event took place. Chris Evans, aka Captain America, took to his Twitter, possibly hinting his retirement, as he said, officially wrapped on Avengers 4. It was an emotional day to say the least. Playing this role over the past 8 years has been an honor. To everyone in front of the camera, behind the camera, and in the audience, thank you for the memories. Eternally grateful. Also in other movie news, Venom premiered last week. Rotten Tomatoes scored it a pretty low score at 31%. However, fans apparently did not give a shit as it opened for domestic at $80.3 million. Spawn creator and director Todd McFarlane has announced that he is in production with his first movie in what will be a trilogy. He stated that Jamie Foxx will take the role of Spawn. James Gunn may be headed over to WB's DC comic to direct Suicide Squad #2. Released about an hour ago, Dave Bautista said, if Gunn is part of Suicide Squad, he would want in. David took to his Twitter saying, where do I sign up? With a link to the story about James Gunn possibly directing Suicide Squad #2. Titans debut this October 12th, and it will air every Friday. And it starts this Friday. A new episode will come out every Friday. And it was also announced at the New York Comic Con that Titans will get a season #2. Brian Michael Bendis and DC Comics will be launching a new imprint called Wonder Comics. It will focus on teenage heroes such as the Young Justice, Naomi, the Wonder Twins, Dale H for Hero. It has some awesome writers attached to this line, such as Mark Russell, Sam Humphries, and of course, Brian Michael Bendis. Uncanny X-Men Annual came out currently and will be set to come out in January. However, there may be a possible spoiler alert. Cyclops is featured on the cover of Uncanny X-Men Annual. In other news with X-Men, Nate Gray will be making his return back as he looks like Jesus or the Messiah. There's also a ton of new trailers released. You can head over to our website, www.comic-watch.com. And I believe JJ has some news for us regarding Conan.
I also had something to add regarding the Uncanny X-Men Cyclops thing, where I noticed recently a lot of Marvel annuals have taken place within old continuity, such as the Amazing Spider-Man annual recently taking place during the Alien Suit saga, which eventually became the symbiote. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's kind of a red herring to bring in fans thinking it's the return of Cyclops when it's actually just a story, like a story of an alternate point of view from the Age of Apocalypse or something like that, because that's a lot of what they've been doing with, like Cap Annual was Cap and Bucky in 1942. So that's the thought on that. And I did have a piece of, did you have anything to...
No, I actually agree with you. I don't know if they're going to make Cyclops come back yet. I mean, I'm sure he's due for a return anytime soon, but I agree with you. A lot of the annuals have been side stories, like the Gold, what had to do with Kitty back in high school or when she first joined the X-Men. So it can go many different ways.
Yeah, exactly. And I did have a bit of Conan news in that during Emerald City Comic Con, they announced that, or they announced a creative team for, um, God, Savage Sword of Conan, and showed some cover art, and that will be written by Jerry Dugan. Um, and that's coming out alongside Jason Aaron's Conan the Barbarian, which he's writing, and with art by Mahmoud Asrar. Um, Also, early next year, Marvel will be releasing 2 Conan omnibuses. They haven't mentioned what the content of the second one will be, but the first one has been confirmed to be the Barry Windsor Smith years, which is Conan 1 through 22. And they are also releasing 2 epic collections, which will cover the entire Dark Horse Conan series, which was primarily written by Kurt Busiek. And that's all the Conan news I have right now.
I think it's looking like a pretty good year for you sword and sorcery fans.
Which is me, probably mostly me. Honestly, I do feel like Marvel might be flooding the market with Conan stuff too fast. They've got like four $50 to $100 books that they've announced already coming out in the first 3 months, and then they're coming out of the gate strong with 3 ongoing series. Because they're also going to be relaunching Savage Tales, which was an anthology style magazine format book that usually featured a Conan short, a Kazar short, and then a couple original shorts, sometimes by artists like Gil Kane and stuff like that, and just
Cool.
usually kind of a sword and sorcery tone. But it's hard to say whether their new book will be an anthology book, because anthology books rarely succeed in this day and age. They might just use it as a jumping off point for another ongoing. I'm not sure if they have the rights. If the rights to Cull came with Conan. I do know that Red Sonja is still retained by Dynamite, so it's hard to say.
Well, speaking of Red Sonja, Bryan Singer is attached to that project now. That was something that was announced this week, so that's interesting. Also, kind of a bummer for a lot of people. So there's that. I'm really excited about the Age of X-Man. I'm a longtime X-Man fan. I'm a longtime Cable fan too. So there's that. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited about seeing like a big sweeping crossover kind of setup for X-Man for Nate Gray.
Also, speaking of returns, we also have Black Widow returning. I'm very excited to announce that Ross and I will both be doing her reviews. Brought to you by the Twisted Sisters. Or Twisted Twins.
The Twisted Twins, is that you and Ross, or?
No, it's the writers. It's the Soska twins, but they go by Twisted Twins. I may be saying their last name wrong, but yeah, it's super cool. I'm excited. I know a lot of people were like going back and forth on it, but me and Ross are like, we'll do it. We'll do it.
I look forward to seeing those reviews as they come out. It'll be very interesting to see how they go about bringing her back, and or if they bring Natasha back, or maybe plug in a new Black Widow. I don't really know all the details yet, but
I read the press release on it. I do believe that it will be the original, because it says she's back and she's for vengeance, and she's not in a happy mood. Usually when you come back from the dead, you're not the happiest. You're a little cranky.
And of course, Natasha was killed during the big crossover for Secret Empire, where Cap becomes Hydra, and there's Cosmic Cube fixes, etc., etc.
Many exciting moments.
Many exciting moments. Many exciting moments. Speaking of many exciting moments, let's take it down a notch. Our spotlight book this week is Green Arrow number 45. It's written by Julie and Shauna Benson. You may know them from their work on the 100 on the CW, or their work on Batgirl and the Birds of Prey. Art by Javier Fernandez and John Calitz on colors, and my dear friend Darren Bennett, who I'm not really friends with, but I've talked to a few times on Facebook, on letters. So this issue, spinning out of the events of Heroes in Crisis, and we went deep into our thoughts on that last week, features Roy Harper, Arsenal, Speedy, Green Arrow, or Red Arrow, whatever moniker you want to put him as. It's his funeral. The story is titled Draw and Release, and it takes us through his dear friend's reactions to his death at his funeral. I thought it was masterfully done. I know that there are other opinions here waiting to get at it, but essentially, for me, what we saw was a heartfelt goodbye that focused on the various stages of grief that Oliver goes through at this funeral. And I think it's important. I'm gonna cut you off at the knees here, JJ. I think it's important to remember that this is not Roy's book. This is a Green Arrow book, and therefore, as the central titular character, we see this all through Oliver's eyes. And I think that for me was really heartbreaking to see, not only that Oliver is devastated by this and that he never got to say goodbye and he put off the phone calls and all the things left unsaid, but also that he's so selfish. And that's kind of where this current story arc has been building, this kind of selfish, solipsistic, narcissistic Oliver that takes the center stage even at the death of his son. Like, even at that funeral, he can't help himself but be a prima donna, emotional wreck, the grieving widow kind of, narrative trope. So what about you guys? What did you guys think?
JJ, I'll let you go first, because I want to counter anything you're going to say.
You can try. Well, I honestly, I wasn't that impressed with the issue. The art was just terrible in a lot of panels. Not to mention, it really, to me, it seemed like it was, it was yet again, same as Heroes in Crisis, an issue designed to tug at your heartstrings, and at the same time, it felt to me like the writers, the Benson sisters, were looking at a list of like the stages of grieving and then just checking off a box. Like bargaining, he tries to talk. He tells Hal to resurrect Roy with his ring. Anger, he yells at the Justice League. Depression, he looks super hangdog and sad when Donna Troy is talking. Not to mention, it really did annoy me that Killer Croc wasn't there, since Killer Croc was so instrumental in his recovery in this continuity. And at the same time, they shoehorned in some random no-name person that went to rehab with him to tell his recovery stories, when that could have just as easily been Killer Croc. And it would have been, just so much more interesting to me if had they done that. Likewise, where were the Outlaws? Where was Starfire? Where was Jason, who was arguably his best friend? And even, I do think it's funny that Batman didn't go, because Batman has historically always hated him. They had the Batman Plus Arsenal one shot in the late 90s, and Batman, I can't remember, Cheshire kidnaps their baby, and Batman expresses just complete disdain for Roy. The entire time. He's like, I'll help you get your baby, but I don't like you. But and like Cody said, it really bothered me that in this book that should have been focused on Roy, and I've always liked Roy. He was the Archer in probably my favorite Justice League lineup, which was Meltzer's Justice League lineup from 2006. Because I think Ollie was dead at the time. But he in a story that should have been a celebration of Roy's life or some interesting stuff. Instead, we got a lot of junky moments with Roy and Ollie, and all the ways that Ollie failed him, and every step of the way Ollie made it about him. And I understand that it's his book, but it wouldn't have killed anybody to take a step back and examine the person that you're supposedly trying to make us care about. I mean, the Red Hood and the Outlaws annual did it. And yeah. So I don't. I mean, it was a fine issue, and as a tie-in to Heroes in Crisis, I mean, it was better than I liked it better than Heroes in Crisis. I don't know. I mean, I guess if you like Roy, it's worth reading, but it's not about Roy. And if you like Roy, it might not be worth reading because you might be disappointed because it's not about Roy, despite being a story about Roy. Also, alternate issue title: "Funeral for a Fiend," meaning addict, and that'll be that.
I will agree with you on one point that it was the artwork was not my favorite whatsoever. I think I mentioned to Cody when we first read it the first night or the second night that the artwork was literally of like the artist had no intention of drawing eyes, even though it was in the light. Like there are things about the artwork that I didn't like. The part that I'll disagree with you at is that I thought it was a stellar book. I mean, granted, I don't know Roy as well as you guys do, but it tugged at my heart as well as any death should. I mean, I think we keep saying that, oh, these people are just trying to pull at your heartstrings. Well, yeah, no shit. Somebody just died. Like that's the whole point of them trying to get that type of reaction from you. And like, what are we expecting? Like, I read another comment saying that, oh, they're just trying to do shock and awe and people are dead. That's what they're doing. That's what the story is about. Like that's, yeah. They're going to capitalize on it by making a story. Or if they don't do that, then superhero deaths don't mean anything, which technically they probably don't anyways because they come back in a few years no matter. But the point is that when it's a superhero dies, that somebody that we're reading, you should have that struggle. You should have that hardcore feelings where your heart hurts. And I can honestly say reading this one that my heart hurt. It literally did. Like I read it, I was in tears. I'm probably not the most excited to say that I was in tears, but it did, and it worked. So I mean, kudos to the writers, kudos to, and it is an Ollie book. Like let's not forget that this was based off of his views, his way of thinking. And yeah, you do check off when somebody dies or something traumatic happens. You do go through the process and you do check it off. And do I think that it should have been maybe throughout the rest of the series? Or for a few issues, yeah, but they need to hurry up and run back to the story or the story arc that's written for Arrow. Do I think they should have probably done a whole book off of just for like they did with Funeral for a Friend for Roy? Maybe, but maybe he wasn't. I mean, since he wasn't such a mainstay, that they didn't. I mean, they put him in Green Arrow, which is where he originated from, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of where I come from there. I thought it was a great issue. It pulled at my heartstrings like it should. That's all I got to say.
No, I mean, like, back to something JJ said, which I thought was interesting, is, yeah, there's no Jason, there's no, I'm not reading Red Hood and the Outlaws right now, but I assume that last I saw was Bizarro and Artemis, right? So, like, I agree that there were some conspicuous absences, but I think that might be part of a bigger story. Jason's absence was weird. It was weird. He should have been there. He wasn't there. Who knows what he's doing? But I think we'll see that as this whole thing kind of unfolds. But I agree with Brian. Like this was the anti kind of Tom King pull at your heartstrings thing for me, with the exception of the rehab story. Most of these stories that the Benson sisters were pulling from were things that we've read over the years. Whereas with King, and I finally was able to put my finger on it after reading this issue, when he tugs at your heartstrings, he's using fabricated moments. He's using these moments that didn't occur in the comics until he breathed life into them. So he's making them, like for instance, Hotspot, right? I had read the Teen Titans series that Hotspot was in way back when I was, still in high school. And he didn't have a catchphrase. This notion of catchphrase that Superman remembers, didn't he have a thing? Like, that's all fabricated in this issue to elicit a response from you in this issue. And I feel like the Benson sisters really kind of tried to lean on, things that recently occurred in Green Arrow, things that they wrote, and things that happened during the Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams run, which is, one of the most iconic runs in all of comics history. So they take these things and they make that be the emotional draw. And I thought that was really, really well done, as opposed to Heroes in Crisis.
I did think it was kind of funny that Cheshire was there because were they married in this continuity? Do they have a kid in this continuity?
I don't think they have a kid in this continuity, but I think they did have a relationship in this one.
Okay. See, and to me, it's weird that Cheshire was there, but Jason isn't. Because I feel like Roy and Jason were much closer. Obviously not in a relationship, but they were together for years, and Jason's no less because obviously Jason did kind of flip on Batman recently and is now, I think, killing people again. I'm behind on Red Hood and the Outlaws.
Yes, he is. I read Outlaws. It's one of my favorite books.
That's right. He killed a guy by shoving a flag up his ass. I remember now.
Well, not a flag, something on fire, or what is it? A torch.
A torch. That's what it was.
It was amazing.
I don't know. There's a part of me that wonders how much of that is availability, though. Like, where is Jason? If he's not here, what's he doing? Like, he might be out there hunting, just like Batman is, or allegedly is. But who knows? Like, who goes to funerals? Why go to a funeral? So, I mean, that's...
I can't actually remember where Jason left off at. I do think that he left him at Sanctuary, and maybe he doesn't even know yet because he is flying under the radar because of Batman, and he's on that killing spree. I'm sure, well, next week is, or not killing spree, it's only one person. So this week actually releases an issue for Red Hood and the Outlaws. So we may have answers coming tomorrow, or actually for you guys, it'll be today. But I do want to mention, Cody, I want you to take it back. Donna Troy is not the killer. I won't take that back.
Look, it all adds up.
It does. Right? It does.
It all adds up almost too well. Right. You've got Donna Troy, formerly known as Wonder Girl. She's drinking now, so she's obviously got something on her mind. She recently betrayed the Titans. And all of the victims that have shown up, with the exception of Blue Jay and Citizen Steel, or Commander Steel, I guess, in this continuity, have been Titans. Lagoon Boy, you've got Arsenal, you've got Wally West, Hotspot, and arguably who put out the hit on Nightwing, which we'll get to next with JJ's Nightwing review. But that's 5 Titans that have been taken out, like classic Titans and a couple of periphery characters that have been taken out in the last 2 months.
Yeah. Can we do a poll of who we think it is?
Yeah, sure.
Donna Troy's probably the best bet. Honestly, it's really funny that she was there and giving a eulogy, but she's been drinking so much it would be funny if she blacked out.
Or it could be, on top of that, it could be, did you guys read the arc where somebody came back as Donna Troy as her older self? Troya.
Yeah.
It could be her somehow.
Yeah, it could be. Like, it feels like Harley or Booster is too obvious from the beginning.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's got to be some kind of twist there. Or, maybe it's just a bad series, which is quite possible. But Donna Troy feels right to me right now.
Okay. JJ, you think it's Donna Troy?
Yeah, I think so. Although Troya isn't out of the question.
I actually think it's going to be the automated or the therapist.
Like the actual sanctuary bots or whatever?
Mm-hmm. No.
Yeah, I like that, with the Medusa masks. And
that's a little too easy.
Well, I mean, it is Tom King.
Oh, wait, welcome to the dark side.
No, I'm just saying, like, I mean, I could see that coming about because nobody's guessing that one. Everybody's throwing these.
We think they were using the Medusa masks because the Medusa mask kind of denotes that Psycho Pirate might have been there, and Tom King's been big on using Psycho Pirate, and He could definitely emotionally manipulate someone like Donna Troy into killing a bunch of people.
I totally forgot about his Psycho-Pirate stuff early on in the Batman run.
Yeah, could be. Or it could be Bane.
I will break all the Titans.
It always comes
I mean,
back
it
to
doesn't
Bane.
make much sense, but there's this big arc that they had in Batman's Tom King with Bane and everybody. And when Catwoman came back from jail after she murdered like 240 people, but didn't really murder somebody else who she was protecting, and blah, blah, blah.
Holly.
It was
Yeah,
Holly.
Yeah. Fuck Holly.
Stupid Holly.
Stupid Holly.
Stupid Holly.
Ruins everything.
Can't be trusted. Well, anybody have any final thoughts on the funeral for a fiend? That's really clever, JJ. I like that.
We're definitely going to have to use that in our title.
I can't decide what I think about it. I don't think I liked it.
That moment where Ollie's saying goodbye finally and refers to Roy as his son, like for me, father-son things always hit me harder than almost anything else. So for me, that was devastating. Like
Well, that just felt like an echo of Last Rites when Alfred says to the Justice League, "My son has died after Batman dies." It felt like the exact same ploy at your heartstrings.
Well, it is. It is the same
yeah.
ploy, but it is, that's the Field of Dreams ploy. That's it's a common classic trope, and it's a classic trope for a reason because it fucking works. So.
And they play Cats in the Cradle, and it all just goes downhill from there.
So JJ, Nightwing 50, which I feel like is pretty organic to what's going on here, just because I'm paranoid and have this Titans conspiracy that Tom King is behind the scenes saying all the Titans must die. So tell us about Nightwing 50.
Okay. Nightwing 50 was written by Ben Percy with art by those three people, Travis Moore, Chris Mooneyham, and Klaus Janson. I believe Klaus Janson just did the flashbacks, and Travis Moore and Chris Mooneyham tag teamed the current day art, which was actually really good. The flashbacks looked great, actually. So we open on a diner, and in the diner, Dick Grayson's sitting kind of, I didn't write down what he was eating, but he's eating something. And in walks a stick-up guy, because apparently people rob diners. I was a graveyard manager in a diner for 6 years. We never got robbed once in a crappy part of town. So that's always a funny thing, like Pulp Fiction, or people sticking up diner. What do you think you're going to get in a diner? All right,
but I mean, you don't stick up the diner in the crappy part of town. Those people don't have any money. You stick up the diner in the good part of town, where everyone's buying coffee and pie.
How many times do you see restaurant robbery on the news? Some daring daylight restaurant robbery.
Fair enough. Carry on.
Never. All right. So Nightwing, I guess he goes by Rick now, or Gray, depending on who you talk to. Says, "I got more money in my wallet than you're ever going to get out of that cash register. Why don't you come get it?" And puts his wallet on the table. Again, kind of a la Pulp Fiction, come get my wallet. It's one that says "bad motherfucker" on it. And the guy comes and takes his wallet and says thanks and starts walking out the door. And Nightwing goes, "Oh wait, you forgot something," and grabs his mug and just nails him in the back of the head with it and knocks him out. And it seemed pretty spiteful. So I guess that's what we get now. This angry wing. So we cut to then, which it doesn't specify a time, but it's him as Robin, and they're busting Scarecrow, who is holding, I think it was a church. Might have been, it was a church. And Scarecrow and Robin are fighting, or Scarecrow and Robin and Batman are fighting. Scarecrow throws a a pitchfork, and Robin catches it, which is actually a pretty rad panel. And Batman walks up to him and says, I can't decide if it's a good Batman line or not. Because he says, I'm going to rip your mask off, and when you do, you're going to take a deep breath of air and breathe in your gas, and then I'm going to beat the hell out of you. Which is like 10 times more words than Batman has ever said to one person in one time. But it was pretty funny at the same time. So he does what he says, and he rips the mask off and starts wailing on Scarecrow as he's having a fear gas hallucination, and he sees Batman as a giant, terrifying bat creature. But moreover, he sees Robin, and as he's being handcuffed, he sees Robin, and he's still hallucinating from the fear gas, and Robin's a giant flaming bird. And as he's hauling him away, he says, "You're pathetic." And I think the fear gas kind of makes that room echo in his mind more than it should. And then later in Arkham, you see Scarecrow saying, I hate the boy without fear," which kind of felt like a Mr. Fear Daredevil kind of thing, the man without fear. So that was kind of silly. So we cut back to current time, and Dick seems to be spending all his time gambling, playing pool, boxing, drinking. And then he's working as a cab driver. And when he goes to the cab, the number of his cab is 1940, which is a pretty clear and obvious nod to the year he debuted in 1940. Then we cut back to Jonathan Crane again. Then I think it was shortly after the Batman fight, and he escapes from Arkham by using a tooth. He acts like he hung himself when the guy's giving him CPR. He reveals he has a tooth that he pulls out that has fear gas in it. Some kind of Soviet era spy. Cyanide capsule. But he escapes and he hunts down Robin, and Robin's kind of swinging around. This is a little out of order, but it makes more sense to tell it this way. Take notes, Ben Percy. But so Crane's looking for Robin, and he finds him swinging around, and Robin's swinging around saying, "What should I name myself? Stealth Wing? Dark Wing?" And he's going through all these different versions before, and he never lands on Nightwing, which actually kind of bothered me because it kind of retcons the Superman giving him the name Nightwing from an old Kryptonian vigilante, which I always thought was a cool way to kind of tie him in, that it wasn't Batman who gave him the name, it was Superman. And it kind of made me feel like Nightwing was a good mix between Batman and Superman, like he's a brighter Dark Knight. If that makes sense. But so we cut back to current day Rick, and he's squatting in an apartment. He's walking around in his underpants when he hears someone coming in, and he runs out the back door and leaves a note. And the note says, "Thanks for letting me use your place," and it's a few $100s. So at least he's paying the people for their time. So is that squatting or is that house sitting at that point? But yeah, I thought it was funny that he left money. And then outside, he's confronted by Barbara Gordon, Batgirl, who's been his love interest for most of his existence. And he doesn't remember her. Although I did think it's odd because he mentions that she got shot, and he says something to the effect of, I know, I got shot, you got shot, you want to talk about it?" And I thought it was weird that he doesn't remember her, but he does remember that she got shot. And, I mean, I guess you could have told him since.
I have a theory about that.
Oh, go ahead, B.
I actually don't think he doesn't remember anything. I think it's a play. I think that he remembers everything, and he's just like, screw this. I got shot.
Yeah, and I thought it felt clear to me that they had previously talked. enough to be like, I don't remember you, but you don't remember this, like all these things that happened to them. So
That could make sense.
yeah, I think that made sense. I don't think it was necessarily great, but go on.
But they walk into a bar, and Dick kind of pulls a barfly. I got plenty of friends right here. It's around for all my friends. Great Mickey Rourke movie if you've never seen it. Um, um, but he goes into the bar, and the barber keeps calling him Dick, and one of the bar patrons says, "But I thought you went by Gray," and the bartender calls him Rick. And one of the guys sitting next to him goes, "She just call you Dick? Ha! Dick, Dick, Dick." Because it's kind of an outmoded wit to call someone named Richard. And then we cut to Barbara in a kind of it's like a testimonial view, which I've seen in like half a dozen books in the last 2 weeks. I don't know why DC is pushing these 9-panel or 12-panel testimonial style views, but they were in Deathstroke a bunch. They're in Heroes in Crisis. Um, I've seen them in some other books too. They're just everywhere now. Um, and I don't know. It's kind of silly. It's almost like Bendis cramming 20 word balloons into one panel. Like it's just a good way to force a bunch of dialogue without having to have the characters do anything. You can inject a lot of exposition or a lot of but in this, Barbara's talking to Batman about how she can't convince Nightwing, or she's talking to someone about how she can't convince Nightwing to come back or to look for help, and then it cuts to the other side, and it's Batman, and he says, maybe he should be allowed to forget, maybe he's earned this, which I didn't hate. And then we cut back to Nightwing, who is driving around in his cab, and then we see Detective Svoboda, who has been his kind of police. He was kind of trying to push her the whole series to be like his Gordon, but she didn't want to. It was actually really funny. Like I think she shot him once, and I think she arrested him at least once too. And he tried to do the whole police officer thing, and he bombed at that, which I thought was pretty funny because that was his thing in the '90s. Was he as a vigilante by day or a police officer by day and a vigilante by night, um, for a little while, and then he started a gym. And I think he curated a museum for a minute when he lived in New York. Um, but Svoboda's saying that crime's on the rise, and it's obviously kind of directly linked to Nightwing being uh, gone. So violent crime is seeing an uptick from the lack of their Bloodhaven's vigilante. And then they go to upstairs, and there's a murder victim, and it's a man, and she says that he drowned in his sleep, and on his chest is a single crow feather, which I guess could indicate Scarecrow. Obviously, the Scarecrow appearance is kind of you know it's kind of setting up the next arc, which it's really interesting that Ben Percy's doing so much to set up next arc, since this is his last Nightwing issue and Scott Lobdell is taking over next issue, which speaking of Red Hood and the Outlaws, Red Hood and the Outlaws has been fantastic lately, and Lobdell's writing that. So and Nightwing did appear in Red Hood and the Outlaws annual #1 and was pretty well written, I felt, so I'm pretty excited for Lobdell to take over. And then the issue closes with Nightwing going to his base, like his Nightwing base, and you see all his costumes, and it's kind of cool seeing like a costumes over the year, like his disco suit's there, and his '90s suit, and his new '52 suit, and then his Rebirth suit are all there, and he says something to the effect about not being able to be afraid anymore, and he douses the entire thing in gasoline and burns it. Which was actually pretty genuinely shocking, for nothing else than the fact that you'd think Batman would have any Bat person's base fireproofed. At least sprinklers. Does it not? It doesn't meet building code. So,
That's a really good point.
all in all, this issue. I thought it was a pretty interesting direction to take Nightwing. It wasn't. It's weird because I've been really not liking Ben Percy's run at all, but this is probably the best issue of his entire run, and it's his last issue, and he's setting up Lobdell's arc going forward. But he's setting up a really it's kind of like Daredevil when they talk about each writer to leave Daredevil leaves Daredevil in a hole that the next writer has to dig him out of. Bendis left Matt in jail.
You're in jail. Here you go,
Brubaker,
Ed.
Brubaker left Kingpin in charge of the Hand. But this is kind of that where they dug Nightwing into pretty much the most horrible hole they could imagine, and then said, "Well, I'm done. See you later." Which obviously it's pure editorial fuckery, and it's it's all thanks to one Mr. Tom King and Nightwing getting shot in the head by KG Beast. Which an interesting point is who contracted KG Beast and where they got it for Nightwing, which is an interesting question as well, and I would think would be addressed later. For all we know, it was Scarecrow, because it turns out Scarecrow's Nightwing's archenemy, which I actually kind of hate, because the best thing about Nightwing in the 90s was that he immediately established his own rogues gallery with Blockbuster and Lady Vic and Brutale, and they completely have, I feel like they've either been relying on original villains, which have been pretty lackluster, or bat villains for most of this Nightwing run, for most of the 50 issues, because you had Dr. Hurt at one point, you had I guess Raptor was an original villain, and Raptor was pretty good, and then Blockbuster came back. But for the most part, the Judge was kind of meh. The Dark Web stuff was awful. Ben Percy should never have been allowed to write that and release it and charge me $4 an issue for it. I'm gonna be mad at him forever. Although he is writing the new Wolverine podcast, which is actually not terrible. But it was.
I really liked his run on Green Arrow to start Rebirth. From the get-go, Green Arrow was one of my favorite titles of Rebirth.
Oh, well, Percy wrote the first series of it?
Yeah.
Well, that's what everybody's saying, is I don't understand how his Green Arrow could be so good and his Nightwing was so terrible.
Right.
So maybe it's just the wrong fit.
I was really excited. I was really excited when he took over Nightwing, because I was like, damn, all right, let's do this. Let's get it. And then those issues happened, and I felt slightly different.
Yeah, the whole hackers and Nightwing runs a gym now, and that equals motorcycle race. And then we're going to have 2 issues of a motorcycle race that nobody cares about and nobody wants to see. And Silence is there for some reason. And why is Professor Pig there? And he won the race, but he gained literally nothing. The thing he asked for was for more time. And the reason he asked for more time was because we knew we were going to this the editorial fuckery was around the corner. So, 2-issue motorcycle race arc? It's going to be a thin trade. They'll only charge $18 for it. But all in all, I feel like my impression of what you'd call the new Nightwing, Rick, is not completely unfavorable. They made him kind of a douchebag, but he's kind of, it's an interesting, different way to take the character, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with change. For the most part, obviously something like this is the kind of thing they'll run for 3 arcs, maybe less, and then everything will revert back to normal. Zatanna will walk up and wave her hand and say head heel backwards or something. Remember everything. And
well, I mean, that's with any comic book. And
oh yeah.
Not.
But especially this one.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. I didn't read his last arc just because it seemed, it seemed like it was. Right, yeah. I was going to wait for trade, but I think I may skip this one. But I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what's going to come of the story. I personally think he remembers everything, and he's just kind of like, I'm done. Like, I'm done with this. And then something will happen where he's like, okay, I guess I'm not done.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would blame him.
Yeah.
I will say, like, I read this issue the first time and I wasn't super impressed, but I think I was kind of coming into it with just knowing that I wasn't enjoying Percy's run and stuff. And on a second reading and reading it a little more in depth and taking notes, it's a very dense book. That's actually why I'm only reviewing one book this week, is because it took a whole page to take notes on this book. I thought, douchewing.
Like, yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, it was a really dense issue. There was a lot going on. The flashback sequences and how they're going to play into the future. This whole new Dick Grayson persona. I'm still not totally sold on where I feel as far as a new personality for Dick. And I mean, been reading him for 30 plus years, and seeing him not be him is weird. But I do think that it's an interesting direction. I think it plays right into Scott Lobdell's hands, and he is a love him or hate him kind of writer. I personally love him, so I'm excited. I'm excited to see where this goes, how Scarecrow plays into it. I just don't want Dick to forget Babs. I don't want that.
Well, I will say that regarding Lobdell, it is the guy who, he's not obviously the direct person who made Red Hood a villain. That would be, was that Loeb
Judd,
initially?
Judd Winnick.
Well, it went on Under the Hood, but Jason was in Hush also.
Oh, right.
But Lobdell was pretty formative in making Jason into what he is now.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do anything like that, because I think he wrote The Lost Years too, which was pre-Flashpoint.
Right.
Which was a really good Red Hood mini that kind of showed what happened to Jason while he was gone, pre Under the Hood, and that's where they confirm that that Hush was Jason, even though during Hush it was shown to be Clayface.
Mm-hmm.
Which is one of the better retcons, I'd say.
While we're on the subject of Jason, fascinating that, back to Green Arrow, fascinating that Bats missed the funeral because he's hunting down Roy's killer. But that bastard never hunted down Jason's killer. And I sort of feel like there's something there as far as like a seed for the future, some kind of relationship thing that we'll see play out between Jason and Bruce.
Well,
And
come on,
maybe Ollie
Joker.
and
Joker
Bruce.
had diplomatic immunity. He was the ambassador to Iran.
That he was.
His hands were tied. Oh.
Brilliant story, by the way, even though it sounds ridiculous. Death in the Family. It's Batman.
Oh, no, it's ridiculous.
426 to 429. I highly recommend it. It was my first major Batman arc as a child. And it still sticks with me. I go back and reread it, and it's still it's amazing.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. I love when he asks, was it Lady Shiva if she's his mom?
Well, and his dad was killed by Two-Face, and like there was that moment in Nightwing, right? Or was it Batman 56, which both came out this week, where he's talking about Jason is mentioning how, no, you know what it was? It was one of the preludes, because I caught up on a bunch of stuff I had missed. One of the wedding preludes, Jason talks about how his mom used to say his dad was Joker, and that she was gonna call his dad and feed him to him as like a punishment or like a child abuse kind of thing. So,
Nice mom.
yeah, terrible mom. Jason's mom was awful.
Yeah.
In all continuities, Jason's mom, bad lady.
Yeah.
Yeah,
His
she
grandma.
definitely seems to have her issues. I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of us are attracted to Jason. There's a lot of trauma growing up, and he's just kind of a cool character that apparently sticks things up people's ass. All right, so
I don't know. I don't know how to follow that, but B. So, unless anybody has anything else they want to say about Nightwing, I think B has some recommendations for us this week.
yeah. Actually, this last week was a great week for comics, or for indies especially. The first book that I want to talk about is Errand Boys, which is written by DJ Kirkbride, art by Nikos Kutos, yes, and covered by Eric Larson and Nikos Koutoudis. It's published by Image Comics. It was actually a really fun book to read. I didn't know what to expect when I first read it. It's about Jace Lopez, who is a 30-year-old. He's kind of a rebel. He does. He's an errand boy. Like, he runs things from one side of the alien universe to the other side for payment. Sometimes it's illegal. I guess it'd be more like a transporter. Then all of a sudden, his mom or his stepmom and his father die. Now he's in charge of his 13-year-old half-brother Twok, who is a really weird-looking alien. I just read this book. It's fun. It's awesome. The art is the only thing that I kind of go back and forth on, but I think it works perfectly with this book. It's just not my favorite type of art style. But definitely check it out. It's worth the $3.99. It's probably still better than Blackbird #1 is the other one that I'm going to talk about. The artwork.
Wait. Probably better than what?
Nothing. Gotta go. Some of the bigger books, probably. I mean, we pay a lot of money for a lot of different books, and they're not necessarily worth the $3.99, the $4. I'm not talking about Marvel or DC or anybody else. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not.
If I got a stack and I'm putting something back, I'm not putting back a Vault or or an Image. I'm putting back a Marvel or a DC. That's for sure.
Yeah, and So Blackbird. Okay, this artwork is amazing. Derbs will probably put it up in front of my face. That way, you can truly see the artwork. This is a weird book. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. So Nina Rodriguez believes in magic. The story first takes place when she was a kid. She knows that the earthquake is coming. She has her little cat wrapped in her when she's probably like 10, maybe 11 years old. Her family's there. She knows that it's coming, and nobody believes her. Boom, the earthquake happens. Fast forward 10 years. She grows up. She works in a bar. Stuff keeps happening. She believes in magic. Nobody believes her. She lives with her sister. She's a drug addict. She lost her parents. And all of a sudden, magic reappears in her life. Like, it's just weird. Like, I don't know how else to describe it than it's weird, but it's weird that it's cool. Like, read it. Like, it's amazing. The artwork's amazing. This book is written by Sam Humphries, art by Jen Bartel. The cover is done by Jen Bartel and Fiona Staples, who is most known for, of course, Saga. I'd recommend it. Have any of you guys read it? What were you doing?
It was the heart thing for Fiona Staples.
Yeah.
Fiona Staples is just an amazing talent.
Because I'll be honest, it looked like a vagina.
She also does covers on Labyrinth Coronation, but from Boom Studios, which is one of my favorite books right now. It's written by Cy Spurrier, which is pretty much my if he writes a book, I buy it. Cy Spurrier. Also Chris Sabella for writers for indie books. Chris Sabella's got 3 series right now. Cy Spurrier's biggest book right now is obviously The Dreaming from DC Comics.
Right.
All right. And the last recommendation that I have for you is, I know a book that was talked about on JJ's indie book talk is Dead Rabbit. And that is written by Jerry Dugan, art by John McGree, cover by Dave Johnson and John McCrae. So back in the 90s, Dead Rabbit was a Boston hoodlum until he had one last score where he was able to get money, However, fast forward, 20 years, his wife is sick. He has to go back to his old ways. He's currently working in what seems to be a Walmart. He hates the job. This book is hilarious. The beatdowns are brutal. I mean, there's a funny part where he's literally showing us that he has hemorrhoids and has to wipe his ass by standing up. I mean, who doesn't? I thought that's how that worked. No, no, it's just a fun, cool book. That I mean, these three are actually. I didn't realize that all three of them were for Image. So Image had a Power Week last week, and I hope you guys recommend it. If you guys are reading it or have your thoughts, please comment below under the comment section and let us know what you guys think about it.
I thought Dead Rabbit was pretty good. I did. As B said, I put it on my my indie show, which is usually like 4 to 6 books that I pick each week. Yeah, it was a really fun, interesting read. I wasn't too sold on Jerry Dugan prior. Actually, when they announced he was going to be writing a Savage Sword of Conan, I was kind of disappointed. But after reading that, I have more faith than after reading any of his Deadpool, which is the other primary thing he's known for.
Like, I love that Image. Like, who would have thought 30 years later we'd be talking about Image as this, like, place of innovation, right? You start Image and you've got Youngblood, which is just absolutely terrible in the beginning. And you've got, these kind of clone group teams that are popping up, with the exception of the Wildstorm stuff, which I'm a just total sucker for, like Stormwatch and Wetworks and whatnot. But
Wildcats, Gen 13.
yeah, like, but if you had told me
early Spawn's terrible,
the Image would really turn into the place for creator-owned projects, no way. 13-year-old Cody would have said, "Piss off, you're crazy." But it really has been. Some of the titles I've loved from them: Saga, East of West, Trees. There was a Scott Snyder miniseries about Canada at war with the U.S. It was just great. There's a lot of stuff coming out of Image right now that is so much better than anything coming out of any other company.
Yeah, and it's so different. Like, there's a lot of magic components. There's a lot of just bruiser type of comics. There's a lot of sci-fi. And real quick, JJ, I just wanted to point out, Wildstorm, I believe, was what kind of started Image, at least from my recollection. I'm still in love with the Wildcats, Gen 13, Wetworks. I want them to come back in its original form, not the crap that... Wait.
Don't do it. Don't do it. I'll murder you. I'll murder you.
Future's End was the best.
Yeah. Not that the current Wildcats is not... It's just not what we know the Wildcats to be, or the Wildstorm to be, and it's disappointing. I want the old ones back.
See, to me, and maybe I'll get into this next week in depth, but for me, Wildstorm, as re-envisioned by Warren Ellis, and I will admit, I'll cop to the fact that I worship at the altar of Warren Ellis. He's my favorite comics writer of all time, hands down, not close, easy. But what he's doing is reimagining this type of universe with 21st century ideas. And that's kind of Warren Ellis's big thing, is always being at the bleeding edge of science, not just the cutting edge, but the bleeding edge. So he's adapting the Wildstorm universe to what we know now, and I think that that's really, to me, very innovative.
Yeah, I agree. I actually really like it. I stopped collecting or picking them up after about Wildcats 10, maybe 11. I really enjoyed Michael Cray's run with them. But honestly, there seems to be delays. There's always something with Wildstorm that always gets pushed back, or there's not consistency. So I'm like, I'll just wait for trade.
I don't think it's ever been delayed. I think that
Wildstorm.
The Wildstorm is a monthly, and the 14th issue came out just recently, right? 15th, 16th?
I don't know. It comes out this week too.
So I don't know. I'd have to look, but I don't think it's been delayed. I'm just really far behind in it because I'm trying to catch up on, various other things. I spent an entire afternoon this weekend catching up on Old Man Logan, which has been fantastic. Just absolutely great. Ed Brisson's run is remarkable. But I don't know.
I do like it. I mean, it's just, I wish they would have stuck with the original.
It was a little dated at this point.
So I guess that brings it to me.
JJ. I was thinking of a comeback, and that's all that I came up with.
I guess that brings us to me. I chose 2 issues that I want to kind of quick, fast, and in a hurry hit. Shatterstar #1 from Tim Seeley. It's art by Carlos Villa and Gerardo Sandoval, who does the flashbacks. Inks by Juan Blasco and letters by Corey Pettit. This is Tim Seeley's first entry into Marvel Comics. Those of us that followed Tim Seeley on Nightwing, that followed Tim Seeley on Grayson, and then back into Nightwing. He's a really, really, really strong writer. So to see him move into Marvel, I feel like that opens up a lot of opportunity. So Shatterstar #1, we see Shatterstar as this character, Ben, who's a landlord, bought a building, opened it up for rent to reality displaced peoples. So you've got, this Pug Destroyer, you've got an alternate future Night Thrasher, you've got a handful of these displaced peoples living in his building, and him just trying to live a normal life. He's broken up with Richter. Apparently they didn't fight enough, and at the heart of it is a death squad, a raiding squad from Mojoverse comes and steals all of his tenants, and he is, in the process, this future Night Thrasher gets killed, and he is going out to avenge them. Personally, I thought it was a really great setup for a limited series. I don't know that it's a limited series, but it feels like it probably is. Marvel doesn't really announce that as well as they used to. Sometimes they just kind of call things, this is #1, and maybe it's ongoing and maybe it's not.
Maybe it's a one-shot.
Maybe it's a one-shot. Maybe this is it. But
it's on purpose. They just want your money.
I felt like it was a really fun book. The art was great. The writing was great. It just was. It's not going to change your life. It's not going to change the way that you feel about Shatterstar. You either feel about Shatterstar or you don't at this point. But it was enjoyable in a way that not a lot of Marvel books have felt to me recently. I know, Brian, you read it, right?
Yeah, I did.
and you also enjoyed it kind of in the same way. I feel like that it's good, it's fun, it's nice.
No, I completely agree. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's different than any book that I think I'm currently reading. It's just, the only problem is I'm not a big fan of the Mojo stuff, and that's where it's kind of headed to. But I'm in. Let's see where this goes. It was just a fun book, and seeing him and what he was doing and kind of his backstory. I actually don't know a lot about Shatterstar, so I wasn't sure what to get when I read it. And he has his own apartment complex that he owns. He rents it out to a bunch of misfits who may or may have met a horrible fate. It was a cool book. I think everybody should pick it up. I didn't know that Richter and him had such a bad relationship, or it ended badly. Last I saw in New Mutants, they were pretty cool with each other because they were spending the night at each other's house, or they would be in different places, and all of a sudden that shit went out the window. So I don't know where their relationship is. Clearly it's over because Richter did not enjoy seeing him. It also kind of played really into a lot of Shatterstar's character, of what he likes. Who knew that he liked going to plays, and it spoke to him and that kind of stuff, which makes complete sense because I mean he's made for the television for Mojo TV. So I'm interested to see where it goes. I'm excited about it. It was a good book. I won't say great or I won't say amazing, but it was definitely a good book.
That's exactly it. Like, it was a good book. I loved the kind of theater aspect to it because, this is a character that was bred for theater. So obviously he would gravitate towards this notion of, bonding with a character in a short period of time. I thought that was really well done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see where it goes. Like I said, it's not going to change your life. It's not going to, this isn't the next Watchmen. But this was a really fun comic book. So if you're not already in Shatterstar #1, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
My LCS buddy says it's a miniseries, by the way.
Yeah, I think I did. I was looking it up real quick, but I couldn't find it. I believe it's 5 issues.
Okay. Well, I'm in for 5. In
Marvel
for a
does
penny,
5
in
issue
for a pound.
minis now. Marvel does 5 issue minis now because they figured out they could charge the same as a trade for a 6 issue mini.
Fact.
I actually don't mind the trades with it. I like the miniseries that keeps popping up.
Well, they're the same price as a 6 issue mini was before.
Yeah.
That's how they get you. They give you less for the same amount.
Yeah. I mean.
So I also wanted to talk on Deathstroke 36. It's the first issue of a new arc. Arkham is the new arc. So for those of you that forgot, because it's easy to do, we had 6 months of Batman versus Deathstroke in between when he got committed to when we actually see him in Arkham. Priest's Deathstroke run is the best run on the character of all time, period, end statement. It's been incredibly entertaining. Where we left off was Deathstroke finding out that this AI chip of like an AI wintergreen that was put into his head wasn't actually put into his head. So he's seeing the AI, he's hearing the AI, he's seeing everything the AI is saying, and it's not really there. It's all smoke and mirrors. Maybe Deathstroke's crazy. Maybe he's not. Who knows? So he gets committed to Arkham, and then we flash back to the Batman vs. Deathstroke arc, and now we're back. He's in Arkham. They're doing VR, like virtual reality kind of therapy sessions where everybody can be whatever they want to be, however they want to be. So you see him throwing down in VR with Two-Face and the ventriloquist and Scarface and everybody you can imagine from the Batman Rogues Gallery. He's in this session. He talks to a boy who says, he was abducted by space aliens, and goes back to his room and decides he's going to test the viability of his AI. Like, do you really have the schematics to Arkham? Can you provide me a way out? Or can you not? So he follows the map. He runs into the boy again. They find their way out. And then they're abducted by the aliens that Space Boy has been abducted by before. Is Slade crazy? Is he not? I don't fucking know. I don't know. He might be. I mean, how could he not be with all the trauma that Slade has gone through in his life?
And now he's getting abducted by aliens.
And he's getting abducted by aliens? Like,
out of nowhere.
This shit is crazy. This shit is crazy. Christopher Priest. He's one of my all-time favorite writers. Ed Benes on art is just amazing. Apparently he's got an assist from Fernando Passarin. I can't tell where Ed Benes begins and Fernando Passarin ends. So, I mean, that's probably a pretty good sign. Jeremy Cox on colors is always amazing. Willie Schubert on letters is always just fucking brilliant. This book is really exciting. And I know a lot of people aren't reading it. I look at the sales figures every month. It's shocking to me how many people are missing out on Deathstroke right now. But
I know the sales almost doubled when they did the Deathstroke versus Batman. Are they over doubled? Do you know, are there any figures for this issue yet?
Not
any
yet.
Early predictions?
Yeah. Not yet, but I imagine that it will be lower than it was for, Batman.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think the first issue jumped up to like 50 or 60K, which I think it was averaging like 30 before, maybe 35.
If that. I think it was more in the mid-20s, but
Yeah, it might have been.
I mean, this is, a once-in-a-lifetime kind of maybe cult hit book, but this Deathstroke run has been really, really strong. I could not recommend it more. Priest is an absolute beast on this book. The things he's doing with framing, the things that, he and his artists are doing with subtitles and, sections throughout the series. Like, it's just really strong. Please go pick up Deathstroke. Keep Priest in a job. I think I'm the only one of us that's actually like current on Deathstroke. So
I read it.
Oh, did you? What
Yeah.
What did you think of Arkham?
I actually thought it was good. I thought it was a fun issue. I haven't read the issues prior to Deathstroke versus Batman. It just happened to be on my poll following Deathstroke versus Batman, and I didn't take it off because you've been raving about it so much. I'm going to need to catch up, I think. Yeah, I thought it was really solid. It was kind of interesting to see the virtual, the virtual therapy room was kind of funny, and
Right?
and it was funny. The alien boy was kind of cracking me up. He was hacking it and stuff and doing weird stuff, and then, but I am curious if any of it is actually happening, because a lot of those characters, like Dr. Destiny, Dr. Destiny fought him and he took his mask off and it was Jericho, which kind of makes me feel like it might have been a dream or a hallucination. And likewise, the alien boy seems to know things he shouldn't. And it was weirdly convenient the way that as he was escaping, Alien Boy popped up to bring him back, or maybe abduct him by aliens, which could be like some facet of his psyche, like his conscience or something, trying to like tell him that it's wrong to try and escape. For all we know, he's not in Arkham at all, and he's in like in a Leviathan holding cell, being subjected to fear toxin, and this is his worst nightmare, is being thrown in Arkham.
I mean, worth mentioning is, this first story, this first issue is titled "The Republic," which is, of course, Plato, where the allegory of the cave comes from, right? So, to what degree, what is real? What do we see that is real? We've got that virtual reality therapy session. Is that like an Inception kind of thing? Is this virtual reality within a virtual reality? Like, there's a lot of questioning what is real in this arc so far.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I've seen enough movies to know that there's a likely chance none of it's real. Like, for all we know, I would say out of all of it, the only thing that I have any confidence is real is the aside with Willow and Jericho, where they're saying that Rose needs her dad and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, and there is that interesting aside, harkens back to the Chinatown arc where Rose has kind of assimilated some kind of alternate persona, Rose Ravager, Rose Wilson, and has been going into Chinatown and trying to get revenge for somebody that she doesn't really seem to know. So, I mean, that's an interesting, like you said, like as an aside, it seems like it'll play into maybe the next arc. So, it's a really tightly woven book. B, read it.
I'll get to it.
I really do. Like, this is my favorite ongoing book right now. Hawkman is pushing it. Really kind of creeping up there on the list, but I really enjoy Deathstroke. Right up there with X-Men Red and Hawkman as some of my favorite books going right now.
It's really funny that I didn't keep up with it. I really enjoyed Deathstroke right before the Rebirth, but since Rebirth, I don't know. Like the first couple arcs kind of was hit and miss for me, but I still enjoyed it. It's okay. That's how I feel every time you talk about Batman. So I don't know. It's a book that I liked. It's just not one that I kept up with, but I'm still interested in it. Like I'll still probably get the trades for them, maybe, probably more than likely I will. I always get the trades.
So I think it's pretty close to time to move on to Future Watch. I want to real quick mention X-Men Black Magneto #1 came out this week, featuring a new story from Chris Claremont, Dalibor Talajic on art. And it also had a backup story about Apocalypse from Zach Thompson and Lonnie Nadler, who will be the kind of, it seems like they're going to be the brain behind Age of X-Man. What a disappointment. I don't know what you guys think, but I was just crushed by how disappointing this book was.
Gigantic letdown.
Right,
Gigantic letdown.
I loved the idea of talking about, detainment centers as, we're dealing with in the real world, right? You got these detainment centers for immigrants where they're separating children from their families, and they kind of address that with these mutant detainment centers, but it felt so forced. Like, one of the things that has always been great about the X-Men books is that they take these real-world ideas and make them organic and make them kind of fit into the X universe as they fit into ours. And in this case, that was not the case. Like, this was over-the-top, ham-fisted, almost painful to read. And I love Magneto as a character. I love the subject. Like, I'm totally with them on the subject matter. And I thought that it was so poorly done that just heartbroken.
Yeah, it was not. Even the art wasn't. I didn't love the art, but it was just like it felt so like you said, super ham-fisted. It like the whole that's a bad law, and then they like practically both look at you and say somebody should change it. And I will say I was pretty delighted when Magneto literally liquefied a person, and then really, really disappointed when he put him back together.
Right.
Well, and I don't even know how that'd be possible. That it doesn't make any sense. Like if you're gonna liquefy a person, sure, but you can't untoast toast. Like you can't uncook a pizza.
That toothpaste is not going back in the tube.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. It wasn't really feasible that he would. I mean, I can totally dig him, taking the iron in someone's blood and the ferrous materials and destroying disintegrating a person. That seems totally within his power set. But recreating the person and they're still alive seems well out of his wheelhouse.
Right.
Did
you have anything?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Pete, did you have anything to say about X-Men Black? I know you also read it, right?
It was okay.
Right?
Like, I mean, I didn't hate it like you guys appeared to, but it was okay. Like, it wasn't horrible. I agree with the art. I wasn't a big fan of the art, and I'm somebody who would just as much get a book for its cover or their artwork than the story. But I mean, I like the idea. I think the story was okay. I don't know if it was what we're expecting because they made such a big ordeal out of it. The Black series coming out from San Diego Comic-Con, and then it finally came, and then it was like, wah, wah, wah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it was okay. Like, I mean, I would read it. I kept it. But, I mean, will I read it again? Probably not. But, yeah.
No, I don't have to.
Yeah, not unless I have to do another show about it.
I thought the Apocalypse story was kind of cool, interesting, like, completely against the whole idea of Apocalypse, where he's devolving into a human and losing his powers. Like, that seems like that will be important moving into Uncanny X-Men and Disassembled, and then later into Age of X-Man. but I just the tastiness of a Chris Claremont one shot about Magneto just felt like it was destined for greatness and just fell flat.
And you know what? The thing about okay, I am so tired of Apocalypse. Like, I'm done. Like, I think I skimmed through the Apocalypse story. Like, I mean, I one of my favorite all-time stories was Age of Apocalypse. After you do such a good running series from that, there's nowhere to go. Like, just let it go. Like, and then we had to watch that horrible movie, X-Men Apocalypse, and then they had the whole X-Men with, what was it? X-Men Extraordinary, the
Extraordinary X-Men, yeah.
Wars of Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Just stop.
I actually liked the Apocalypse Wars or whatever that was called, where they kind of each book had their own dealings with Apocalypse in the future or in an alternate dimension or in the present. Like I enjoyed that. That was actually maybe the last time I really enjoyed X-Men.
Okay. Okay.
Just wanted to throw that out there. But X-Men Black came out next week. We'll have. Let's move into Future Watch. Next week we'll have X-Men Black Mojo #1, which I will be buying and probably never reading. Like B, I'm not into Mojo. I never got into Mojo. I like Longshot. I like, Dazzler. I like Shatterstar. I hate Mojo. Terrible.
I saw the preview panels, and it looks like the first page is a direct dig at Comicsgate, which
yeah.
I thought was kind of funny, but at the same time, again, super duper ham-fisted.
Yeah.
I won't read it or buy it.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm
I'm
so
not buying
negative
it.
in the show, but honestly, I'm not. Like I'm just not. Like, kudos to the writers. I'm sure it's a great story, but you guys unfortunately got handed somebody I have no interest in.
Just like Deathstroke.
No, I actually like Deathstroke. Like, I'll watch.
I meant in general.
Oh yeah, like I'll totally read that.
Not
one
a fan
eventually.
favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I just think I have so much reading on my plate as is that it takes a lot for me to be like, yes.
I might buy it now because I am literally recording from my beloved Arcane Comics and more in North Seattle.
Yeah, and many thanks.
In representation of our boss Ross, I have the tiger here because he's from South Africa.
There's no tigers in Africa.
I know. As soon as I said that, I was thinking lions, and then I looked backwards, and I was like, "Oh, fuck, it's a tiger."
Wrong continent.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was like, I'm going to take a hit on this one, but it's already too much into the story. I'm going to take a hit no matter what.
You're committed now.
Yeah, I'm
committed to the
already committed. I was like, well, got to stick with it now.
Brand's that Arizona jungle.
Yeah, it's true. That's why I said at the beginning of the show I was in, what is it, Devil's Fork?
Devil's Fork.
Yeah, I don't actually think that place exists.
You should look into it.
Yeah.
So what are you guys jacked about this week?
So this week for my poll, I have Amazing Spider-Man #7, Avengers #9, Crowded #3, which is that Christopher Sabella book I was telling you about, Detective Comics 990, Hawkman #5, Immortal Hulk #7, Supergirl #35, and Superman #4.
Whew. It's a big poll. What about you, B?
It's a pretty light week for me, actually.
Yeah, I have a light week too. Like Captain America 4, of course, but Catwoman 4, Red Hood Outlaws 27, Titans 27, which I can't wait to have Derbs back to talk about Titans. He's my go-to on that. Domino 7, again for Ross, just because he loves Domino. Iceman #2, and then X-23 #5.
Well, for me, I'm not going to list my whole polls list, but I'm excited for Captain America #4. I think Ta-Nehisi Coates has just been crushing that title. One of the most relevant and well done Marvel titles in a long time. Iceman. Iceman number 2. I'm looking forward to seeing where Cinegrace goes. I know that I wasn't overly positive after the first issue, it's not that I didn't enjoy it. I just had higher expectations for it. And Hawkman number 5. I mean, that is one of the best books coming out right now. So Robert Venditti, Brian Hitch, like that book is firing on all cylinders. I'm super excited. Also, Flash 56 comes out.
Yes, it does.
So I'll be buying that, and I will be reviewing that. And Joshua Williamson, I'm ready for you to move on to the next arc, please. Yes.
You've been hating that series, haven't you?
For the last couple issues, it's been kind of rough. I'm a big Flash fan. I'm a firm believer that if you're going to read DC, you need to be reading Flash at all times, because who knows what's going to happen that's going to impact the entire DC universe. But the last couple of arcs have been repetitive and boring.
Flash is
And
running in circles.
just kind of unpleasant right now, and it sucks because I've loved Williamson's run right up until now. So hopefully he gets through Heat Wave and the Sage Force and comes through on the other side and gets back to what he's been doing.
I heard, and this is third-party information with no direct corroboration, but I heard Snyder has confirmed 2 more forces, which are the Divinity Force and the Immortal Force or something like that. And I think they're coming up in the Drowned Earth Justice League crossover.
Cool. Yeah, I'm fucking over forces.
Explain 1 before you add 4 more.
Well, I mean, I think that's what, and maybe this is an editorial thing, right? Like Williamson has been told, okay, we've got these new forces. Now we need you to do arcs to explain all of them, because he did the Trickster arc to explain the Strength Force, and it sucked.
Which didn't explain anything.
Well, I mean, at least we know that the Strength Force is linked to gravity. I mean, that's
what does that
thing.
mean?
I don't fucking know, but it's a thing.
What does that signify?
I don't know.
That means nothing. Strength is in no way hooked to gravity, or no way dependent on gravity.
Well, I mean, Superman's strength is linked directly to his ability to defy a yellow sun's gravity, right?
I don't know that it is.
Yes,
he's still strong when he's not. He's still strong when he's not on Earth.
Only because he has all the... Oh my god, I'm not getting into this. I'm not fucking Big Bang Theory Sheldon.
Wait. You are known as the Professor of Comics, so...
Professor Cody.
So, all of Superman's strength comes from the fact that the gravity from a yellow sun is significantly lighter than the gravity from a red sun, right? And this has to do with collapsing into singularities, et cetera, et cetera. So
none of that sounds true.
It's all true. Trust me.
Just making stuff up.
Just take it.
And also, doesn't he absorb it?
Right. He absorbs it into his skin cells, and I mean that was the big joke in like the first episode of Big Bang Theory, right? Like he absorbs it into his skin cells. Show me one comic where they talk about Kryptonian skin cells, and I mean any true comic nerd can show you many.
I want to know if his poop is invulnerable.
It is.
Stop. So what, does he have a never-ending bag of it that has to be shot? You can't shoot it into the sun. You're making a cool spot in the sun.
He doesn't poop.
Would it be invulnerable?
He doesn't poop. His body is at peak condition, doesn't create any waste.
That doesn't sound true.
I read that somewhere in like a Wizard in 1996.
So our show has went down since the beginning.
How convenient to list a source we can never find.
Yeah. So I do believe he poops. I believe it'd be normal because he eats human food.
Nope.
Yep.
Shenanigans. It's not true. He gets all his sustenance from the yellow sun.
Well, he allegedly didn't need to sleep, and then it made him schizophrenic in an excellent Silver Age Superman arc where he, I was actually just talking about it earlier today, where he thought a assassin was stalking him who was capable of killing him, and then big twist, he hadn't slept for 3 weeks and it was him. He was going to kill himself.
Nice.
That was the big
Nice.
twist. The assassin is me.
Kurt Swan era, or
I totally forgot to wear my comic book shirt today. I was noticing your guys's.
I actually didn't realize I was wearing one. So there's that.
Most of mine are. Mm.
It's false. JJ is not approved by the CCA.
Well, it was funny because someone
It's
said,
not approved by any censorship.
doesn't that mean you're really lame? And I said, I own a CCA shirt. Of course I'm really lame.
Touche.
We have a podcast or a YouTube shirt or a YouTube show talking about comics for like 2 hours.
Hi, Jeremy.
It's kind of, yeah.
So on that note, why don't we wrap up this week's episode of Comic Watchers? We thank you all for joining us. From all of us here at Comic Watch, please follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Check out our new page, the Comic Watchers Show. Is that what it's called, JJ?
The Comic Watchers Show. The Comic Watchers Show.
It made more sense that way.
No, it does. It's just, but if you look it up without putting something else comes up.
Interesting.
I mean, eventually you'll find us.
If you really love us, on comicwatch.com, there's a Patreon. You could throw a couple bucks our way to help us keep this website going, keep us, in business. That'd be pretty dope. If you hate us and you want to throw money at us to shut us up, so be it.
Yeah, pay for me to be quiet. That always works.
Pay by the giggle for JJ.
And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yes, please, 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 please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us, share us, tweet us, whatever you can do. Get the word out.
Comment your disapproval on our opinions. I would love to argue with you for hours.
Fact. B, any parting shots?
Just check us out on the Comic Watch Show on Facebook. Read our website, check our reviews. You can leave any comment below. Let us know how we're doing. We don't care if you say we suck. We're still going to show up.
We will be here every week, regardless of your opinions.
Yeah, Derbs, we miss you. Hope to see you next week. And hopefully you feel better enough by tomorrow to edit our show so it can go live. Just kidding. Hope you're well.